Welcome, everyone, to the C-Suite Sales and Marketing Perspectives podcast. I'm Steve McDonald, your host. And today, I guarantee we have a conversation that is going to stretch how we think about our go-to-market, how we think about B2B businesses, ABM, go-to-market strategy. And we're going to talk in ways that after we've recorded, Paul, here, 280 episodes with C-suite executives, and we've never covered some of the territory that we're getting into today. So I'm very excited. We're going to talk a lot about kind of a reality check on ABM and why some of the conventional approaches that we've tried in the past, why they fail now, why we need to be constantly thinking and innovating, which is kind of in the day and age of AI is kind of an obvious thing, right? But you've been around, you've done this for a number of decades. You've been a 4-time CMO. You've worked in 7 different companies, massive turnaround, big companies like Dell, all kinds across the spectrum. Before we get started, you're the CMO and President of ISG. I'd love to hear a little bit about what you're doing now, your career, and then we're going to dig right in.
It's so great to be here, Steve. Thank you for having me. I work for a fantastic firm. We are about a $300 million public company called Information Services Group, and we help Fortune 500 companies go through big technology transformation and do contracting and governance and all sorts of partnering with the service provider ecosystem. So we're right, and we thrive when there's confusion and questions and tumult, and Fortune 500 companies are looking for an advisor of experienced people. And that's when ISG steps in, and with AI creating so much disruption. So I'm the chief marketing officer for ISG. We're headquartered in Connecticut. I'm based in New Jersey, and, going strong. I love it. I keep learning every day. I've been a marketeer since the late 80s and always with high tech. And the big transition I made is I used to be a product marketing person at Compaq, at Dell, and Hewlett Packard, now HP. And then my first big CMO role was at Infosys, the huge systems integrator based in Bangalore. And so that was a huge challenge. I didn't really know anything about services, but I knew a lot about marketing, so I thrived. And then I spent the rest of my career, the last about 15 or 17 years, doing CMO roles for services organization, which is really challenging because the product, you can touch it. The services, you're selling trust and expertise, but it's not slots and bays like I was used to and sheet metal in the computer days. But I love all aspects of marketing, leading teams, and AI has re-energized all of us marketeers because it just opens up a whole new world of challenges and opportunity.
Well, it's funny because you could talk every podcast, you could talk about AI, right? But I wanted to ask you a question right away because one of the things that you said in our original conversation is, Steve, there's what I call a conversational messaging gap, right? Where human dialogue is what drives engagement. And if you go back in our careers, right? Because I've got some gray hairs, I've been around a little while as well. It used to be all about automation and scale, right? It wasn't about human connection at all. It was like, we're going to automate the world. We're going to have everybody just coming to us, right? And then with AI, it's a different kind of promise, but we can fake personalization. We can do a lot of things that make amazing content, amazing outreach, right? That personalizes everything that we do. But what you're saying is we got to stop for a minute. We got to put the human back into the equation in a much more, effective way. So I just love to hear what your thoughts are on that.
What's funny is the core element about being a marketing person back in the day was learning how to do messaging or positioning. And there was a lot to it. We learned on hallways. Nobody was virtual. We learned on hallways, and we learned from our elders and the more experienced people. And we had to do a lot of things in the product marketing group at Compaq, my first company, a great kind of computer leader in the 80s and 90s. But until you really mastered the art of messaging, you hadn't really made it. And as the years went by, pre-AI, it was kind of a lost art. A lot of people got smart about different elements of marketing technology, but sort of lost the magic of how to build a positioning statement and the story around it and the pillars. And we could get into that, but here comes AI, that it's sort of like for a software developer, AI creates code for people that don't code, and AI creates messages for people that didn't come up the hard way, the way some of us came up learning messaging. And so the good news is it's okay. It's pretty good. But it's sort of a path like a race to mediocrity because now that AI has been around for 3 years, everybody can spot it. Everybody. I was in a meeting yesterday. I'm not going to name names, but somebody was showing me like a script for a video, and we all could see, oh, it's logical, but there's nothing compelling. There's nothing magical. And marketing is a lot of science and logic and analytics, and it's a little bit of art form and creativity, or maybe a lot. And no matter how much a prompt understands your tone, you have to be careful. So we can get into it, but no, I've actually worked with my team to make sure we don't use AI to create our messages. We can use AI in a lot of different ways, but what it does is it flattens your story. And for us as a research and advisory firm, we make sure that none of our experts, like our experts in whatever workplace, future workplace or something that creating white papers, it is forbidden to use AI. That would really flatten the thought leadership of our firm. So even though we use AI all day, every day, not to create the core content, because as you said the magic word, conversational. There's something about the way people communicate that it just AI can't do it yet. Maybe one day it can, and when it can, we'll have to figure that out. But right now, it's so obvious when something's created by AI, and we see it. We see it in the emails that you get, or websites, video scripts, you name it. And we're in a very tricky time right here in April 2026. If you don't understand the new paradigm and leverage AI, you're going to be in big trouble. If you leverage it too much in the wrong spots, it's going to be okay. But guess what? Your competitors are smart too, and they work hard too. And if you're just okay, you're not going to win.
So much to unpack there. I've had a number of conversations with CROs that they're like, Steve, I'm buying plane tickets like I never bought before. I'm getting out. I'm having face-to-face conversations. And the whole reason is exactly what you're talking about. They feel like they've lost the connection, right? Whether it's in the middle of the pipeline or whether it's a long-standing client. And the need to have the face-to-face, the need to have that conversation to make that connection is getting more important than ever. And so how do we do that? You've talked about, use AI appropriately, but you're working with Fortune 500 companies. What do we need to be thinking about and doing to create that connection more?
Being in person is the best, but we can't all do that for different reasons, logistics or budget. Before COVID, it was actually common for people on video calls to not be on video, which never made any sense to me. But a lot of people just thought, no, I've got reasons why I can't be on video. And then when COVID hit, we all sort of figured out you need to be on video. But to this day, people don't recognize that communication is 90% body language, facial expressions, gestures, and tone of voice. And it all connects together. And that's part of the conversation and being human. And that's just a baby step one. We don't get to work with clients in person as much as we used to back in the day when we spend every week on planes, but just the way we outreach to them, it could be, say, in an email. I'm just talking like a basic outreach, trying to get, might be somebody but you're trying to get a meeting. That's what all of us marketers want to do, try to get a meeting for the sales team. That's the goal. And whenever I see an email that has bullets and a lot of formatting, like say, bold headlines, and maybe a really, really polished HTML or just a nice graphic up top, maybe my corporate headshot, I delete all that. If you're going to be conversational, it has to be written not in the type of formality that we all learned in school. It has to be like I'm speaking to you. I'm always trying to train my team. Just write it just as if you're talking to me, sort of, almost like you're speaking to me. And that there's something about coming out of COVID, even though it's been 5 years, people want that human touch and communication. Back in the day, the old days with brochures, formatting, and this is true, by the way, we're talking about clients, but same exact rule applies for internal communications. I'll send notes out to our whole company, our whole firm, or parts of the firm. And even when I was at, Dell and Infosys and Mindtree, my previous firms, I would never make it formal with my corporate headshot photo or HTML. It would always come from Paul. They knew it was from me because people want to connect with other people. You're trying to create an emotional connection to your team or somebody at your firm or a client or a prospect. And you have to be a little bit personal. For me, I'm the class clown. So my persona, yeah, I'm funny, but your personality has to come through. LinkedIn is the same way. Go look at my LinkedIn feed. I did one today about the Masters tournament. It can't all be just about business. People aren't so interested in that. They want to know who you are as a person. And then they'll start to create some interest and recognize the humanity in you. And that's people put their game face on sometimes when they do marketing and get overly formal. It's almost like the marketing version of, a young adult when they, meet with you and say, "Oh, Mr. McDonald or Mr. Gottsegen." Like, what? No, that's ridiculous. But they don't know that. They're doing what they think is proper.
That can be perceived as at a time where teams are decreasing, not just because of budgets. We're all looking to reduce size because we think we're gaining so many efficiencies with AI, right? And so doing things more personally, more conversationally doesn't scale as well. It might even take a little bit more time to do that, a little bit of thought. How do you, when you're advising your Fortune 500 clients, there's a tug of war there, right? Because we all want more efficiencies. We want to do more with less. But how does that objective work with your recommendations here to be more genuine, be more conversational, be more personal?
No, you nailed it. You got it. Where we use AI is around connecting the dots of all of our data and doing analytics and realize, oh, look what happened on the website and look what happened in our email and look what happened on social media. And AI is really good at connecting all these dots and helping us make smart decisions. And then when we have a campaign, we'll spend all that time. You're right. We'll invest time to create a conversational message. But then we have an agent where we effectively push a button. And in the old days, it would be, okay, you do the website update, you create the email that our salespeople need to create to clients, and you do the social media post. There's like 12 core deliverables. Well, now the agent takes the core message that we did without AI, but it feathers that into these 12 deliverables, and then we'll still review it. What a time saver that is.
Yeah.
And we can do a lot more with less. So a lot of it is the analytics, and a lot of it is what I'd call the multimodal creation from the foundation of a human made message. Those would be two examples that are working with that. Now that's within my own marketing team. With our clients, you could tackle on a lot around governance. Governance is a huge deal. And so
Yeah.
when you're using AI, we're careful. We're careful. We have our own enterprise version of ChatGPT. We don't use anything else. And there's a lot of other guardrails. And for our clients that are huge Fortune 500 companies, some of them are a regulated industry.
Yeah.
It's the exposure and for governance. And then the other thing we can get into is having the workforce change. Like I had to go to my team, Steve. It's just like a little bit extreme, but a year ago when we were really making our push to transform our own marketing, it dawned on me as I was looking at in the eyes on the video, and suddenly I just blurted out, "None of you will get fired because of AI." I hadn't planned to say it. It was just a judgment call. And since that moment, we've done great. It's like everybody, their shoulders drop. And it's not just my team, and it's not just marketing. Not everybody can say that. There's some situations where you probably can't make that statement, but no, you've got to give people the freedom to know they can invest the time. And if they don't invest the time, then they'll be in trouble.
So here's what I want to do. I want to come back to what we were talking about a little bit earlier in terms of, being more conversational. So now we are more conversational and we're having more personalized dialogue. And what that requires is a deep understanding of the voice of the customer. And you talk about a voice of the customer decline. And just to give a couple of reference points, a couple of years ago, Forrester did a customer obsession study, found that less than 3% of B2B companies are customer obsessed. But guess what? 100% of us, including those other 97 that aren't customer obsessed, say we are, right? And say we're customer first, we're customer obsessed, right? So what do you mean by we're in a voice of customer decline? And what do we do about it?
I think from a marketing standpoint in particular, and I'm not a contrarian. I want to be clear about that, but I also have my own judgments. And I'm not a believer in this whole concept of personas. I know everybody loves personas. I actually think that's a detriment because what'll happen is we'll try to get the voice of the customer in a campaign, and my team will say, well, we've got the CMO, the CFO, the chief procurement officer, and it falls under its own weight. It's just not practical. And I think the decline happened because people forget in marketing. If you think about the word marketing, like for your audience, did you ever really think about the word? It's the market. So what does that mean? So if we chose to be in marketing for a living, we need to understand the customer better than anybody else in the room. So if I'm with the CEO and the head of engineering and the head of consulting, and there's something in the discussion around the client and what their pain points are, not so much their needs, but their pain points, right? That the marketing person has to stand up and say, yes, I've done the research in whatever way. I've talked to a bunch of clients, done the surveys, and I can stand up and confidently explain in detail for this target segment what their pain points are for that customer. Obviously, the chief marketing officer and the chief procurement officer at that customer are going to have the very obvious slants to it. But the pain point for a hotel chain, you need to understand that. And I think we end up declining a little bit in the voice of the customer because it's a maze when you start to do account-based marketing and you pick apart so many different roles within the customer. I'm sure some people have figured it out. I've been around. And to me, it just seems like a detriment and it creates so much extra effort. And there's only so many hours in the day and so many people on the team. And at the same time, you lose that spark of like, what is the mission critical pain point that client? They're trying to say everybody wants to make more money or save costs. It's got to be very specific to that segment. That's sort of the core of my ABM to that client. You have to know it, you have to figure it out.
So there's actually been studies that have shown when we do try to segment so much, head of procurement, CFO, CTO, CEO, CRO, CMO, I mean, that it's actually a detriment. It works against us. And we've been trained that to reach the buying group, the hidden buyer that has half the influence on the decision-making purchase, we got to talk to them. We got to walk a mile in their shoes, right? And we don't have a really good mechanism. We're not in meetings with them. We don't really have direct communication with them. It's difficult. So therefore, the fact that we're going to actually take a really difficult communication strategy to reach the rest of the buying group, and on top of that, we're going to divvy it up in about 8 different ways and make it much more complex and harder on us, kind of seems crazy.
I didn't know there were studies.
I'm
That's good
gonna
to hear.
I'm gonna send it to you. I got to look back up. And because it absolutely 100%, the recommendation from the study was exactly what you said. Go to the pain point that company is having, their challenges that they have to achieve long-term sustainable growth. That's where we focus 100% of your time there.
If I can jump in there, let's flip it around. I'm a CMO and I'm a persona, I'm a target. I'm in every database. I'm on every list. I get all the emails. By the way, if I replied to each one, I would not have a job. I wouldn't have any time in the day, but I get a lot of them. But you can learn a lot. I'll forward it to my team. We'll talk about different approaches people make. It is very rare when somebody does what you and I are talking about, Steve, where I look at usually it's an email, where I look at an email and say, oh, wow, they must have read our annual report and our earnings script and must have listened to a podcast I did with somebody. And it's interesting. Usually it's something, if it's anything, it might be a half a sentence about my latest LinkedIn post just to show like I saw you. It's sort of a veneer of personalization that almost backfires. And so the voice of the customer decline, I see it as a target when I'm capturing the communications coming to me as a target.
So let me have you comment further on something else you said. You said it's the responsibility of the marketing guy or the marketing person, right? To really be the voice of the customer. And Gartner's told us that, Forrester's told us that, Deloitte, McKinsey, everybody's told us that. In a B2B company, there isn't a chief customer officer. There's not a chief experience officer, which is really all about the customer. And they've been recommending for years that we as CMOs stand up and represent the customer. Yet we don't go into any of our board meetings and have any of us asked, tell us what's going on with the customer. What's changed this year versus last year? How are we missing the mark? What are the new challenges and the things that we need to be thinking about to hit the mark with the customer? We're not asked that. We're not held accountable to that. And in fact, we got every other department that has every idea on their own what the customer needs, right? We got sales that's talking to, the entire pipeline. We got customer success that are talking to customers every day. We got the chief product officer. I mean, everybody is a customer expert, which leads to, by the way, the number one challenge that B2B companies have. You know what it is?
No.
Internal alignment.
Okay, I'll buy that.
And we can talk about how we found that out.
No, we know this from the work we do with our clients. That actually resonates with me. Yes.
Yep. And the number one source of lack of internal alignment is there's no North Star. Everybody's left to have their own opinion on what they think makes the most sense for, and it's draped, it is clouded, and we're packaged up as what's best for the customer. But there's no central operating system. There's no operationalized voice of a customer that is the North Star that just says, guys, this is how we align around it. So when you said that, how does the CMO take that role? Like, how do we stand up and do that when we're not even being asked to do it, although we know we have to do it?
I like the way you frame that up because, right, it's a proactive move. We're not being asked. I learned this in my computer days. As a marketing person, I can't do engineering work. I'm not a mechanical engineer. So I would never pretend to be one, but the mechanical engineer pretended to be a marketing person and thought he could do my job. So I learned early on, everybody thinks they can do it. So understanding the customer better than anyone else is a weapon that you use internally to get to build respect and build credibility. And I always viewed myself as the chief experience, the chief customer officer. I mean, CMO is just a label, but everything you say, you have to own it and just decide this is your company, and as the CMO, you get the free, and of course, maybe you have a different boss. I've always had these wonderful bosses that give me as much rope as I'll take, and I'll take a lot. When I got my first CMO role at Infosys way back in 2010, and I said, look, put all the marketing team, they're all embedded across the company. I put them all under me, the whole Megillah, and it really worked out well, and it gave me a platform. But then you have to earn it. You have to not only understand the client or customer, we call them clients, you have to be a great evangelist. So it's the flip side of that word marketing. So the first part of it was the market and understanding the pain point and the clients and then being proactive. And the other side of the coin in marketing is you're the one bringing your story to market, whether it's a product or service. As the CMO, you can't be behind the scenes. You've got to be the one leading from the front internally and externally. And people, it's actually a tough role. I made every mistake in the book and got my nose bloodied. If you can survive and advance, it's the most powerful position because you get that freedom to represent the market and then direct that to the people that are crafting the offerings, and they will respect you, but you got to earn that respect. That is the crux of it all. It's not just project managing and making sure the website's fast and your SEO's good. No, that's the stuff we do with our eyes closed. You really touched on the hidden secret of a successful CMO is the proactive ownership of taking all those roles you talked about, putting it into one. And you've already done all the groundwork to be able to explain what's happening in the market, and then you're able to evangelize it. So that's why the CMO is one of the toughest roles, because it's not for the faint of heart, and you've got to lead with your chin. And sometimes there'll be bad days. I'll make a mistake, and you just got to pick yourself up the next day and go at it again, as long as they'll have you. And it's fun. I think it's the key leader role in any company. I'm a little bit biased, but I feel like it's the key leadership role. It's the one with the most ambiguity around it that you can grab and shape as you will.
It's interesting. There's not going to be anybody that doesn't buy into what we're saying, but the difference is actually doing something about it. And so I was in a conversation with a VP of growth and demand gen, enterprise company in 40 some odd countries across the world. And she said, Steve, we go flying in blind a lot of the time. Like, we know the challenges based on kind of the industry. We've been at all the conferences, we've read, we've researched on AI. We know the vertical that they're in. But you said something earlier. It's like, but what's going on in that company? What do they think their challenges are? We are all proud that we can create our own unique go-to-market strategy. We should be recognizing that we have our own unique challenges too, of what we're trying to do and how we're trying to do it and how we see it, right? And so the reason why this reminded me of our conversation here is we think we know a lot. We get very familiar with the data, the NPS surveys and scores that we have coming back, the feedback from sales and customer success. And it might be controversial, but I think the conversations that we have inside of sales conversations are so important, so valuable, but also very, very limited. When I'm being sold to, I have my cards on my chest. I'm not revealing them. I'm looking at them here, but I'm not opening up. I'm trying to figure out what can I glean from Paul as he's selling me. And what we really need is why most CMOs, when they go into a new position, first thing they do is they start calling up, they start talking, having a conversation, non-sales conversation with customers, and like, tell us the real deal, right? You know, we come out of cab meetings and we're like doing high fives and belly bumps because we're like, what we learned, we got to do this more often, right? But we don't. And we rely on the regular business motions to feed us insights and the data that we have coming in from our tech stacks and all kinds of things. I have a feeling I know what you're going to say to this question. I feel like we lose the human element. I feel like there's the lack of connection, and then therefore the conversation, and then the relationship and the trust, right?
No, it's tricky because I've been tinkering with ABM technology kind of since it came out, because I've been involved in its marketing for so long. And I bought in, I spent a lot of money. ABM is the most ambiguous acronym in marketing. Account marketing means different things to different people. And there's so much interesting technology, and some of it can help out, but it doesn't so much help you on the human side. It can give you some good intelligence, but no, there's a whole, that's what makes it such a challenging role, is you're just trying to get a meeting. Forget about the old days of the awareness and interest and that whole thing. That's good. It's too convoluted now. I just want to get a meeting. And if I get a meeting, I want to be there with the sales team, because a marketing person who's not getting FaceTime with clients or any direct interaction with clients, it's sort of like you're losing oxygen. How can you really understand the market? So you got to stand there and be part of the discussion. So let's say I did get a meeting with you. Here's an example. Let me give you just one little anecdote, and there was a lot around it, but we won a very large deal. This is years ago at a prior company, the last company I was in. And you know how, like, if I'm pitching you, somewhere toward the end, I'm going to tell you about our corporate social responsibility. It's sort of toward the end, and it's important, but everybody does it. It's sort of like table stakes about how we give back. It's really nice and really important. And one time years ago, a CIO kind of stopped me in my tracks, and she said, Paul, I get it. You guys are out trying to save the world. It's important. Just leave it out of this conversation. It has nothing to do with, this technology, and just, you're right. So then I was in a tough battle with this one client, with a competitor at this one client. And I just took a picture. This Mindtree had this great program of taking very underprivileged people. They're actually in India called rag pickers. They just go on top of piles and pick junk that they sell for pennies. And Mindtree, which is such a wonderful culture, they created a program and gave these people badges and uniforms and a job. And it was around recycling. And the picture was so powerful, these 7 people proudly with their badge and their uniform. And I told the story around it while this company was looking at the picture. And I found out later, I mean, it almost a tearjerker, like it cut through. It was a human story about everybody has a CSR program. So then I had to figure out how to tell that story after I got shot down a couple of years earlier. I had to tell the story in a way that created an emotional bond. There's ways to do it. That same meeting, I memorized their mission statement because I liked it a lot. It was like a healthcare thing. And I was up there talking to them and I rattled off their mission statement without notes and connected it to Mindtree's mission statement. We won that business. Here's the key. I really did believe there was a connection. It was no BS. People can tell. When I told the story about the rag pickers, I get a little emotional now telling you, people can tell. You have to express humanity, but you have to have humanity. It's sort of like when you're working with people, you have to care about people on your team. You have to act like you care about them. And then you really do have to care about them. People will know.
Oh my goodness. I want to talk for 2 hours, but we've covered so much on this podcast. If there was one thing that you wanted other B2B C-suite executives that are going to be tuning into this conversation, one thing that you wanted them to take away, what would that be?
Just going to pivot a little bit and build on what we spoke about because I think we hit the ABM stuff well. I'll just tell you my big secret, but it has to do with empowerment. It's something I've learned over the years. And I just kind of do the opposite of what I was trained early days. I don't give any action items to my team. I don't give any directives. So I force them to think for themselves, to come with insights, not data. I have a whole sort of bag of tricks of how to do this. But in the end, everybody on the team has better ideas. They work harder because they're inspired, because they feel so empowered. And I really catch myself if I ever am being a boss. I'm like an anti-boss. I want them to come into the office and feel like this is their it might be a 10,000 people at the company. We've got 1,500 at ISG. I want my team to feel like, no, this is my company. If I'm working for Paul and I'm running the website, if they come to me and say, oh, I just want to see, get your approval on this. I'm like, no, 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 no. The way to say it to me is I'm making this decision. I'm going 100 miles an hour. I'm letting you know. So if you want to course correct me, Paul, fine. I'm giving you that opportunity by just informing you. That's what I train them to do. And that empowerment, I know it sounds so old school. It is the team blossoms and flourishes. And I've seen so many great case studies of people on my team. I have such an amazing coaching tree of people who used to work for me that are now in leadership positions all over the world. And that was really the key, was not making any decisions for them, not giving them any action items. There might be an exception or two. That's kind of my big secret.
I ran a podcast for a long time in the HR industry. And so I talked to tons of CHROs, CPOs, CEOs, CTOs, CMOs, CROs in as part of that. And I never really appreciated how important the culture inside of a company is. But if you just think about it really simply, high performance teams are what create success, right? Like we can have okay products and have phenomenal teams, and I'll take that every day, right? And so what you created sound like is psychological safety. Like they have the safety to do what they think is right. And they're not worried about making the wrong decision because Paul's going to come slam me, and so I'm going to restrict what I do and I'm just going to stay within my lane. I'm not going to innovate. I'm not going to think outside of the box. But Paul's going to let me do that. That's so
And
important.
Paul's got their back and they know
Paul's
that.
got their back. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a great
Anyway,
point.
and that was a fun discussion.
Well, the whole mission of this podcast is to bring vastly different perspectives and ideas and experiences and insights to do one thing. Like, I love how you just boiled ABM down to it's all about getting the meeting, right? So it's like, I love that. But there's a million different ways to do that. And if we can all share, then that's the rising tide that lifts all boats. And you were a phenomenal part of the rising tide today. I just want to say thank you for coming on.
Thanks for having me. I'm a subscriber. I'm loving all the episodes. Keep them coming.